yourself, and I understand you're in clinical hypnotherapy. Can you tell me how you got into hypnotherapy and what brought you?
Yeah, I've always been interested in the subconscious. I've actually spent most of my years as an IT consultant, and I was a manager, an IT manager. And I found that working with people was much more interested in working with computers, and I trained to be a hypnotherapist, and apparently I'm very good at it. And the human mind is absolutely fascinating. And with hypnosis, there's techniques we can use which accelerate what conventional psychologists and psychiatrists do. Often psychiatrists, they want you to come for years, and then they may make small changes. We can achieve very quick results in just 1 or 2 sessions. We can go right down into the subconscious and make changes. It's absolutely fascinating.
So what sort of problems do people come to you?
Well, we get the mainstay problems of smoking, weight loss. Weight loss is often really eating problems of varying kinds. It's not necessarily losing weight, bulimia, anorexia and those kind of things, but also people who eat too many sweet things, or people just feel they're not in control of their eating habits. A lot of anxiety, and really anxiety, a lot of problems relate to anxiety in one form or another. People get anxious so they eat, people get anxious so they smoke, they get anxious so they don't sleep properly. So really anxiety is the root of a lot of these problems. There's a technique I give to people where I say we take a number from 0 to 10, and 0, I say to people, if you can imagine this, is a completely still mind, like crystal clear with no thoughts. And 10 is a mind that's overflowing with thoughts. You couldn't get another thought in there. So I try and get a balance of people, a measure of people, of where they are on that scale. And most people who come in, I'll ask them this question. I see it a bit like if you go to hospital, they take your blood pressure. If you actually go to an eye hospital, they take your eye pressure. They look at the pressure inside your eye. Well, this is my equivalent. I look at the pressure inside your head by getting this measure of how busy the mind is. And of course people vary enormously, but most of the people who come to me will be up at, above 6, and often they say, 12, and ask them that question. When we can slow the mind down, people start to get control over their thoughts instead of the thoughts controlling them.
I see. And what about smoking? Do people come to you for, wanting to stop smoking?
Yeah, and we're very successful in that. I actually have a lifetime guarantee. And it's an interesting thing with smokers. There's a lot of different techniques you can use. Many hypnotherapists will use something called aversion therapy. And with aversion therapy, they say, right, well, you go for that cigarette and it's going to taste foul. You're going to get this foul taste in your mouth. And where you actually put that cigarette in your mouth, it will taste revolting. Now, I don't like that personally. I don't do that. It's almost as if the therapist has cast a spell over you. You don't know why the cigarettes taste foul. And if one day, and this often happens, 3 months' time, you think, sorry, I'm going to have that cigarette anyway. I don't care what it tastes like. I'm going to have it. You break the smell. You break the spell. Do you see? And often these hypnotherapists will say that they can't do that again. If you come in and you've gone back to smoking, they won't treat you. Right. They've done their party trick and they can't do it again.
I see.
And what we do with smoking is actually related to work we do in most areas. It's related to something called mindfulness. I've been doing it, for a while, and they've given this a name now. Mindfulness.
I've heard of this. Yeah.
It comes from a Buddhist idea, yeah, and it's about really awareness. So what we do with smokers is we get them to appreciate the subtleties of what's going on in their mind that gives rise to what we call the triggers, the things that would cause them to pick up the cigarette. And they start becoming conscious and aware, and they make the conscious decision to not smoke. So something that they used to do unconsciously now becomes conscious. And we use similar techniques, but much more involved with eating problems. And people often say that, yes, they stop smoking and so on. They might say they're still thinking of cigarettes, when that of course passes, eventually. But also they find they become more aware in other areas of their life. Because a lot of what people do is unconscious. We respond to people habitually.
The automatic thinking.
And it's there, not just in the thinking, but in the way we behave.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever worked in an office. I mean, most people have worked in an office. And I used to work in an office, and you go to a lunchroom, and of course you bump into people in a lunchroom, and it's the epitome of small talk.
Yeah,
It's
the weather and the lift.
Yeah, it's mindless small talk. And I used to take great delight in saying something that would like break the pattern where people say, oh, hold on, what's that? People would come in and say, oh yeah, well, thank God it's Friday. I say, yeah, and then we've got Monday to look forward to, and then it's the following Friday, and then our lives pass us all by, and what's happened to it? And of course, this is how people think.
Yeah.
And they're not aware of it. They're on that endless, mindless responding to things. And they think, well, everybody else does it, and therefore it's normal. Well, yeah, normal and sane are not necessarily the same, especially in this day and age.
So it sounds like hypnotherapy is helping us to break us from that habitual, automatic thinking.
That's the approach I use.
Okay.
Hypnotherapy doesn't necessarily do that.
Okay.
What a lot of hypnotherapists do is simply replace one set of patterns by another set of patterns.
Right. And you're saying that's not the way it should be.
Well, it's not the way I work.
Okay.
And to be honest, in some people, in some respects, that's very successful. Okay. When people come to me, I have to say it's a big ask. Yeah. I'm asking people to become aware of their thoughts, and a lot of people find that very difficult. And sometimes I do resort occasionally to doing techniques that simply replace one set of patterns by another, because these people are never going to become aware. They're never going to even understand what I'm talking about. You see, when I talk to people about being aware of their own thoughts, with some people they say, oh yeah, it's cool, I've done meditation, yeah, I've always done that. Other people, they've got no idea what you're talking about. We're supposed to spend a lot of time and effort just explaining to people that you can be aware of your own thoughts, because the whole concept of it is totally alien to them. So of course sometimes with these people, we just say, look, come in, I'm going to make sure you don't smoke again, or you're not going to eat or something, and we can use techniques to do that. But it's not my preferred way of working.
Right. So can everyone be hypnotised?
Well, it's a good question. People have strange ideas about hypnosis, and people, when they come for smoking, they invariably think they're going to come in, be put to sleep, wake up, and they're never going to think of a cigarette again.
Magical.
Well, that's right, and that is like the hypnotist cast a spell over you, and of course I don't work that way. So they're very aware, they're very conscious.
Right.
Now, there's a certain percentage of people that will come in and not even be aware they've been hypnotised. And I can tell you some bizarre stories of people who have come in. We go through the process and they say, oh, it didn't work. So you pay me anyway. And we do a follow-up with smoking, usually, within a day or two.
Okay.
And they come back for the follow-up and they say, well, I don't know what you did, but I just haven't smoked, even though they were convinced that they weren't hypnotised.
Is that because they felt they didn't fall asleep enough?
Well, yes, they were still aware.
Yeah, because the perception is that you're going to fall asleep.
Yes, and it's not sleep, it's a different state.
Okay.
Now, when you go to a movie, you're actually being hypnotised. Now, you think about this. If you go and see a movie like a Superman movie or a Batman movie, or a lot of these, movies all about superheroes, you're accepting behaviour on the screen that you'd never accept in real life. You're accepting the people who can have these superpowers or so on.
Flying.
Yeah, and that's right. And it doesn't grate on you. Now, there's something in movies which is called the canon, C-A-N-O-N, of the movie. Now, the canon is the criteria of the movie that you'll accept. And if you were to watch a movie, you might want to say a Superman movie, and it's got certain powers. Now, you're accepting that it's going to have these powers. But if suddenly he had something that was completely different, you're sort of great. You think, hold on, where did this come from? Or a Spider-Man movie suddenly turns invisible, and you say, well, hold on, if it's not done within in a correct way, you're great. You almost like wake up out of the movie.
Yes.
And people will sometimes say, when they see a movie, they say, well, it was great, but I couldn't accept it to that point. It just grated on me. Yeah. And it's almost like they wake up out of the hypnotist's spell. Okay. The director is hypnotising you. And if you look at the brain waves, and we can monitor people's brain waves, the brain waves of people who are watching a movie are very similar to the brain waves of people being hypnotised. It's called an alpha state. So, of course, you go talk to people who are in a movie, they'd never say they've been hypnotised, but in fact they have. Okay. And you can get women particularly, and unfortunately men are less capable of doing this, but you could watch a very emotional movie, and you will tear in, you come out of it. Now you'll be moved, on quite a deep level emotionally, but it's just fleeting figures on a screen, and yet it has that power over you.
I see. Well, thank you for that. That's very interesting.
Okay, well, thank you.